Rich people getting richer, but poor people getting poorer. Something everyone has been hearing for years. But after the pandemic, things took a turn. Now inequality is getting worse, and it will continue to. Let's take a look at how. Different but related views can all be used to analyse inequality. The most used indicator is income inequality, which measures how evenly income is distributed among a population. Global income inequality started acting in an interesting way approximately 15 years ago, which is a number in economics that doesn't receive nearly enough attention. It began to reverse course for the first time since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. This followed a plateau in increasing inequality that began at the turn of the 1980s. The expression of once extremely impoverished but highly populous economies, particularly China, followed by Indonesia, India, Thailand, the Philippines, South Korea and Taiwan, has been the main factor in the decline of worldwide inequality. These nations, whose populations together make up about half of the world's population, have seen all tremendous economic growth over the past 50 years and share their success with their citizens. This is great news for everyone in the country, but not for others. It is apparent that Asian countries are helping to lift billions of people out of terrible poverty, which is wonderful from a humanitarian point of view. However, it also indicates that economists that inequality has decreased as a significant portion of the world's population has caught up to the richest people in the globe, thanks to the recent pandemic, if not the 2008 crisis. All of this is wonderful, but at the same time, as inequality was declining globally, interesting things were happening within the nations that were responsible for this decline. China's income disparity increased from a Gini coefficient of 32 to a Gini coefficient of 44 over the course of 2 decades of economic expansion, which was the most concentrated. You may be wondering, what is the Gini coefficient? Let me explain it to you. It is a common way to measure income disparity. It ranges from 0 to 1, with 0 denoting perfect inequality to 1 denoting complete equality. The concept of income inequality and is represented by the Gini coefficient, which is accessible for a wide number of nations and relatively long periods of time, is the focus of the majority of the analysis. Gini income equality, unless otherwise stated, relates to disposable income or consumption, and so already accounts for any redistribution made by taxes and transfers. China was changing from a centrally planned communist economy that at least partially embraced Marxist-Leninist ideas of worker equality to the system that is home today to extremely market-focused economy. The unofficial economic dictum of China at the time was that everyone would get wealthy if some individuals became wealthy first. The typical casual player may still benefit from this since they won't always lose, and their team may be able to afford better coaches and equipment as a result of the increased attention they receive. A few entrepreneurs profited from the development and adoption of modern industries as countries advanced. Overall, though, it was still beneficial to everyone because the new contemporary sectors provided much better prospects for everyone in the nation. To make you understand easier, consider a basketball team. Some nations have world-class players while others have players with low skills and no perfect coach and types of equipment. In the world-class team and the other team were to engage in a match, you know what would happen. The world-class team will win with a huge margin. But what will happen if we distribute players equally? Then the match will get a little challenging and it will be hard to score even one goal. What causes the inequality? The theory and empirical literature has suggested a variety of national and international elements that may reinforce one another to explain the trends in income inequality. One of the main reasons in downstream from politics, inequality is the main problem. When a small portion of the population possesses so much of the country's wealth that every type of tax is essentially a levy aimed at them, the economy is affected. When this is the case, they frequently use their riches to pass measures like tax cuts. The working man eventually suffers as a result of policies created to serve their interests, which also has an effect on their financial health. When this happens, instead of using the influence to enact laws that would remedy the issue, they declare the country to be falling and relocate their labour and resources to more advantageous locations. Global elements like the development of technology, globalization, and cycles in commodity prices are significant. For instance, because people with greater education have a comparative advantage in employing new technologies, technical advancements has contributed to the skill premium. Technology advancement has also resulted in the hollowing out of middle-class jobs in Western Europe and the United States, a process known as job polarization. Inequality trends within countries can also be explained by country-specific factors, such as those pertaining to economic developments, economic stability, and domestic policies, such as financial integration, redistributive fiscal policies, and liberalization and deregulation of labor and product markets. Earlier in the video, it was mentioned that the pandemic has made inequality even worse. Let's take a look. The COVID-19 pandemic has sent shockwaves through the entire world. However, the most recent data show that not everyone is equally responsible for COVID's effects. Nature illustrates how the pandemic has exacerbated already existing inequalities and revealed others in terms of money, health, safety, and more in 6 illustrations. The World Bank's latest data collection demonstrates how those with the lowest incomes have suffered the greatest monetary losses. Researchers calculated how much income people lost and how much they regained, compared to what they would have earned had there been no pandemic, using changes in the gross domestic product as a proxy. The findings indicate that while people of all income levels experienced financial losses, the highest earners recovered more than half of their losses between 2020 and 2021, while the lowest earners did not do so in comparison to anticipated gains in earnings. Another main problem is global debt. Most economists struggle to comprehend why excessive debt may hurt an economy, let alone how much debt constitutes excessive debt. To make matters worse, it is useless to compare the debt to GDP ratios of significantly diverse nations in order to predict how each country would handle its debt burden. In 2021, the Institute for International Finance estimated that the total amount of global debt would be close to $300 trillion, or 356% of world GDP. The global debt to GDP ratio has increased by 30 percentage points in the last 5 years, leading to this astronomically high amount of debt. It makes sense that analysts are becoming more concerned about the potential negative effects of high debt levels. One of the main problems is rent seeking. Rich people's money is increasingly being invested in monopolies rather than investments that create value, such as buying up land, advocating for anti-competitive legislation, and using aggressive business strategies to eliminate competition by undercutting prices or buying out any rivals. This isn't adding value for anyone because it diverts resources away from the economy's productive sectors and towards an expanding parasitic class that is looking for rent instead. The hoarding of residential property by the wealthy, which essentially takes wealth away from the middle class, must be the largest problem with inequality. The hypothetical example of investing in the industry sounds good, but in the current economic climate, outbidding for additional residential units is also perceived as an investment with negative results. If there is an excessive concentration of wealth at the top, investments will also be concentrated there, which is likely to be pricey items or real estate, for example, where huge profit margins can be realized. As a result, it appears that the economy will increasingly be driven by the requirements of a small number of affluent people, with the average person just receiving the amount required to requite these items and the wealthy individuals receiving the surplus or profits to support their lifestyle. Investments in things that benefit regular people therefore lose their appeal over time. While some inequality is unavoidable in a market-based economic system due to inequalities in aptitude, effort, and chance, excessive inequality could weaken social cohesion, cause political polarization, and eventually slow down economic growth. But when does inequality go too far? There is no simple solution, but it will depend on a number of country-specific elements such as societal preferences and the growth backdrop in which disparity occurs. These aren't just criticisms of inequality and its effects, they also call into question the legitimacy of the system as a whole. If a wealthy person's holdings were acquired through a comparative process from which others were excluded and were made feasible by laws that were created by wealthy people for wealthy people, then those holdings are not legitimate. Economic disparity has the potential to erode the prerequisites for its own legitimacy in this way. We would like to hear your opinion on inequality, so don't forget to leave your comments below and let's engage in vibrant discussions. If you haven't already, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell notification to receive notifications whenever we release new videos. See you soon!